Hello, welcome back to another tier list. I know I've already made one of these like recently, but I mean it's a pretty cool idea. I mean it's kind of oversaturated, but I want to do some ideas that not many videos have made, especially with like Tim Burton. I haven't seen that many, but yeah, this will be the last one I'll make for a while, unless you want me to make more. Leave a suggestion in the comments, or like if you want to see any more. But with that out of the way, let's discuss some zombie movies. This is the guy who made this, by the way. Give a shout out to him. And thanks for one of my subscribers featuring Sign, I think 5-7. I think that's his whole name. Thanks for recommending this to me. And if you guys want to recommend anything else, let me know in the comments. I'll read every single one of them. If you want to see any more tier lists or even reviews, which I'll start doing in the near future. But in the meantime, let's get tier listing. Alright, so these are the movies I've seen. Well, actually, have I seen? I actually haven't seen this one. I already put these movie titles in this section because I haven't seen them, but I forgot about this one. I haven't seen this one. I haven't seen any of these. They look kind of cliche anyway. Look kind of cheesy. But I know this is kind of an oversaturated genre as a whole, but I mean, at some point these were pretty cool ideas, and I'd like to touch on these just a little bit more, even though zombie movies have been made to death, literally. But yeah, let's get started with Zombieland. I'll go, like usual, I'll go through each of these how it was originally made. So Zombieland. Now, this may be a hot take, and I also kind of wish they had other movies on here, like Wreck, but that's besides the point. Let's discuss Zombieland. Those are some other movies I want to see Wreck, but Zombieland. So Zombieland. Sorry for digressing, but Zombieland. I mean, it gets a couple of points knocked off, mainly because Amber Heard is in it for like 10 minutes. But sorry for digressing again, but I guess I'd put it. It's a funny movie, and it's got some cool like tactics they pull off, like the rules. Like I forgot the rules, but one of them was I don't know. One of the rules were a little bit quirky, like don't poop in a public bathroom in the zombie apocalypse or something. Something very cheesy and just downright amusing. And I think I'd put it at B. It's not the greatest movie I've seen. And by the way, the sequel is much worse. I'd put the sequel, if it was on here, like a D or F. That movie is just, it's so ineffective when it comes to the uh, comedy, and a lot of the things in that don't really make that much sense. There's a lot of plot holes, but we're speaking in the first one, and I like the Bill Murray cameo. I know the sequel is a Bill Murray cameo too, but I mean that one wasn't as dramatic or imperative to the movie because I mean they actually kill Bill Murray. Well, they don't kill Bill Murray in real life, but in the movie, in their universe, they shoot they shoot him in the chest and then he just dies, which I thought that was kind of funny. That was probably my favorite scene in the whole movie. But besides that, the rest of the movie was kind of forgetful. It's not really memorable. Yeah, most of the movie wasn't really that groundbreaking. But the rules and the tricks they had in the movie were pretty cool. I also like Woody Harrelson's performance. He was probably my favorite actor in that movie as a whole. The rest of them I didn't really care about too much, but Woody Harrelson is an exception. His performance was pretty great, pretty spectacular, I would add. But yeah, if only the sequel was the same. Now, 28 Days Later is probably in my top 20 or even 10 movies of all time. I cannot say enough about this movie that has already not been said, but I would put it in S tier simply because it revived the zombie genre. It rejuvenated it. It helped the genre recover because prior to this, most zombie movies were very cheesy. They're very generic, and like the George Romero style of zombie movies were very quirky, and they just had a like a amusing slash comedic undertone to it, and a lot of the, I guess you could say, makeup effects as well as just the cinematography wasn't that great. A lot of the makeup effects were pretty goofy, and that didn't seem that genuine. But 20 Days Later, it creates a whole new like subgenre of the genre of zombie movies. It creates the fast zombies, and that idea was pretty fresh in the early 2000s because this was made in 2002. Even though the cinematography, by the way, looks like it was filmed in the 90s, but the filter of the and the type of camera they used was pretty cool. I like the opening scene with I think the gorillas or chimpanzees, but and I like the scene that following that when he leaves the hospital. I mean, this movie inspired Walking Dead. That's how groundbreaking this movie is. Except Walking Dead had the sprinting zombies, but that's also besides the point. 28 Days Later, I mean, it influenced so much. So many movies are influenced by even shows. Walking Dead is one of the most popular shows in the 2010s, and they copied this movie. They downright stole the the idea of someone waking up in a post-apocalyptic hellhole. But yeah, and even the cover looks very unsettling. And I wish the sequel lived up to this movie because, and I knew this would be. I know I'm going to do this next, but I knew the sequel would fail eventually, or in some remarks, because it didn't have the same director, Danny Boyle. And with this out of the way, I'm going to do this next because this is the only movie I think that has a sequel on this tier list, except for Dawn of the Dead. But those two are different versions of it, I guess you could say. 28 Weeks Later, I would put in maybe the C tier. And I know that may be polarizing to some, probably not actually. I mean, the opening scene was, I mean, one of the most groundbreaking scenes ever. It gave me chills watching it. Yeah, the opening scene of just Don leaving his wife and letting them get eaten alive or consumed is just, it's unsettling as hell. And it's very bone chilling, I would say. I just wish the rest of the movie didn't have like a Hollywood style to it. The rest of the plot just seems very cliche. And a lot of tropes too. Like my biggest criticism of this movie is the climax and how the main character Don just somehow manages to go past security and to start an outbreak by kissing his wife. I think that plot point was really stupid, especially with America. I mean, America has the strongest. I mean, if they were talking about the current modern world, they have the strongest military presence. So I don't understand how they were overcome by a man who also has like access to these classified areas. So I think that plot was dumb. It could have been avoided. Could have been averted. Uh, but yeah, the way things escalate into like a zombie hellhole in that movie is just a big plot hole and it's very cliche. That's my biggest pet peeve with that movie. Now, moving forward, Day of the Dead. I thought this was a pretty neat George Romero movie. I mean, a lot of his movies are very, I guess you could say, cookie cutter. A lot of them overlap. This one is kind of similar to a lot of them, but it at least adds a lot of depth, especially with how like the zombie is able to use a gun and kill a human. It's pretty cool. They actually have intelligence, and I think that was pretty cool. That was pretty interesting, that whole concept. But other than that, that movie, I would put it in B. B is, by the way, is not bad. I mean, these movies are pretty decent, but they're nowhere as near as 20 Days Later. Not even close. But there is one George Romero movie I would put like an A or S, but I'll discuss that and touch on that in a bit. Zack Snyder's depiction of Dawn of the Dead, his adaptation, I would put that at B as well. I mean, the movie, you can clearly tell it was inspired by 20 Days Later. It kind of just ripped off the whole, because some parts they were like walkers, and then other parts they were just running, and it was very indecisive on what it wanted to do. The movie, it was very like, should I do this or that? Lots of weird creative decisions, but I thought the cast was pretty cool. I don't remember any of their names in particular. I don't know the specific names, but I mean, the actors, they're not big, but they did a really good job. And this really helped Zack Snyder's career, really launched him into a successful career, into like he would even later do DC movies, even Watchmen, which I will make a video on that. Sorry for digressing, but I love that movie. But yeah, Zack Snyder's a pretty good director. I just want to clarify that or touch on that. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead is pretty good. I don't think I'd give it A because I think Zack Snyder has better movies, but I think that's still good. So Shaun of the Dead, I actually watched this yesterday. Um, it's a really good movie. It's very fresh too. It not invites. It evokes as well as just a funny feel to a zombie movie. This really, like, I guess you could say, lack of a better term, combined humor with zombies. And I know they've done that before, like they made quirky zombies or very like goofy looking zombies, but this has very brilliant foreshadowing as well. There's many points where they foreshadow key events, and I love the line that Nick Frost says, "We're coming to get you, Barbara." That's a clear reference to Night of the Living Dead. There's so many like small references and like little Easter eggs, which are pretty cool. I love that line. That line alone gives this movie an A tier, and I think this is the best movie that has Simon Pegg and Nick Frost as like a duo. I think the closest to that comes to Hot Fuzz, but I think those two are basically on the same level. And they have another movie, The World's End. I don't think it's as good. I put that in like maybe C tier, but this is a zombie tier list. But yeah, this is a really good duo movie of Simon Pegg and Nick Frost. They did an amazing job. And similar to, I forgot the director's name for this movie. I could probably see if I zoomed in more, but he also made, I think, Ant-Man. That was pretty cool. Pretty cool. They both, Zack Snyder and that guy, went on to make even bigger movies, more commercially successful movies. So that's pretty cool. Um, Now, Dead Snow. I mean, the whole idea of it, the premise that Nazis are looking for their coins, is pretty cliche. I mean, there's so many zombie movies that have Nazis in them for some reason. They really love to vilify them, which, in their defense, Nazis are horrible human beings, or were. But yeah, there's so many zombie movies with Nazis and or like Russians in them. It's very oversaturated. I mean, and a lot of it's not really executed well. But except for this movie, I think the Nazi captain is pretty cool. And I forgot what country this was filmed in. It's not English at all, obviously, but it's still pretty funny. And I find the scene where he kills like his girlfriend's very heartbreaking. He just slices her, man. It's very gory. It's a very gory movie, but it can also be funny too. Like a lot of these characters die while having sex. I think that's a major trope that knocks him down a couple points. Like there's one scene where the fat guy is getting like head or something, and um, in like a bathroom or something. I don't remember what happened. I haven't seen this movie in years. Or an outhouse, my bad. But he just gets killed, and it's just so dumb. I hate tropes like that. I hate tropes where people die while having sex, because I mean, that just gives me nightmare fuel, and it's disgusting. Not even in a good way. It's not even good, disgusting horror. But I think I'd put this in C tier next with 20 Weeks Later. It's not really a big movie. I think the sequel, they actually made a sequel of this movie. I forgot what it was called. But I think that's better because they kind of flesh out the main character more because he survives and he's somehow immune. I think the sequel's way better. And I love the ending of the sequel too. But yeah, I think the sequel's better. Yeah, it's not on this list. If the sequel is on here, I'd put it like B or A. But Dawn of the Dead. So this is the original Dawn of the Dead, not Zack Snyder's. I think I put this maybe because this movie's very influential. Don't get me right, but like looking back at it from you know 2022 to like the 1970s, I think I'd put it the same area as Dawn of the Dead. I think, or Zack Snyder's version. I think they kind of don't really set the bar that high, but I mean they're very influential because George A. Romero and Zack Snyder are big names in the industry. But besides that, I mean, the movies, I think Dawn of the Dead, both of them, I mean, the idea of a zombie apocalypse happening in a mall, or people like residing in a mall is kind of, it's overstated its welcome. But yeah, those movies are kind of meh in my eyes. But besides that, I mean, they're alright. I mean, I think they're the same level as Zombieland. Now, Train to Busan, I mean, I nearly like bawled my eyes out at that end. Um, yeah, it almost made me sob. I got teary eyed. But I'd probably put that in A. I mean, it's similar to 20 Days Later in the fact that it kind of or not resonated, but kind of revived the genre of zombies. Because I mean, in 2010s, it was plagued with very Hollywood burdens of or adaptations of movies like World War Z. I think that was an alright movie, but it took so many liberties and didn't even resemble the original book at all. I've read some of it. It just it's horrible, as well as like other movies that are just very cliche. But I think it really revived the genre because I don't think it's based off anything, at least I'm aware of. But it's a very good, solid movie. I think the actors in it did a really great job, especially the daughter when she's like crying in that scene where she finds out his dad got bitten. I think that was very depressing. It's a very depressing movie in the end. It has some comedy, but it's mainly emotional, very dramatic. It it takes the zombies in 28 Days Later, but makes them like they're able to like build on top of each other, kind of like what they did in World War Z. That's what they kind of did the same thing in that, which was pretty rad. But other than that, I mean, I don't think I'd give it an S because I don't think it's as influential as 20 Days Later. Nothing is really ripped off that movie. That at least I'm aware of. Like I said, except that I forgot what that other or South almost said South Korean flick. I forgot what it was called. It was with like this kid trapped in this apartment doing social media shit. I think that in of itself was kind of dumb, but that's the only thing I can think of. And I mean, just because it's in the same country doesn't mean they're ripping it off. But yeah, Paranorman. It's a pretty cool movie. It has like zombies, but in the style of Tim Burton, which is pretty cool. Like I love that stop motion style. And yeah, in regards to that, I mean, it's a pretty funny movie. It's even got what's his name, McLovin from Superbad or acting and voice acting, which is pretty funny. I mean, having McLovin in a zombie movie is I mean, something I would least expect. But I mean, I'm happy it's there. In that regard, I put it in A tier. I think it brought a lot of like light-hearted fun, family fun to a genre that is either way too serious or way too just amusing to the point it's dumb. But Paranorman, it's one of those exceptional movies you're never gonna see again. It's a one of a kind, and I would love to see more zombie movies or vampire movies with stop motion in it. That'd be so cool. But now for the big titan of them all, Night of the Living Dead. This is a force to be fucking reckoned with when it comes to a movie like this. I mean, this movie, without this movie, I mean, none of this shit would exist. I mean, none of it would be fathomed of or thought of. It's just, this movie, I mean, it's not even my favorite zombie movie, but the influence it has, I mean, I think it was made in the early 1970s. I mean, it really it created this. It gave birth to all this. Without that, I don't think any of this would be there. I mean, as much as I love to say, like, even half these movies, like Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, is made by this man, George Romero. Um, yeah, even as much as I hate modern zombie movies, I mean, I don't even think Zombieland is that great, but yeah, it's so oversaturated now. But I mean, they all copied off one man, that's George Romero, except for 20 Days Later. That movie's very experimental, as I would say, especially with the camera they use. But yeah, I love the black and white filter. I love those type of movies. Gives it a very clear era of when it was made. And yeah, now looking back on it, I think I'd actually give Paranorman an S rank. I haven't seen it in a while, but when I watched it, it was so fresh. There's nothing like it. I've never seen. I've seen like corpses rise from the grave in like other stop motion movies, kind of like Corpse Bride, but they weren't zombies. They weren't trying to, eat flesh. But in Paranorman, they kind of did. Remember. I don't remember the plot that well, but it was still good. Um, yeah, I think I'd keep that as an S. I might change it later because I haven't seen it in a while. Maybe look back on it, maybe rewatch it, maybe it'll go back to an A or B. But for the time being, I mean, it's more fresh than the rest of these movies. Yeah, so these three, I think. I'm trying to see if anything else I'd upgrade or downgrade. I like 20 Weeks Later, but I want to give it like a jump up. I think that's really it. Um, yeah, that's all I have to say when it comes to these movies. I know zombie movies are very oversaturated. I mean, there's channels that only make zombie videos, which is pretty cool. There's always a place for that, but yeah, zombie. I won't ever probably make another zombie video ever again, because I just prefer more gothic or dark movies like Tim Burton or Stanley Kubrick to a degree. I want to do videos more on those rather than this, but for the time being, I mean, I just watched Shaun of the Dead, so I mean, it kind of gave it a fresh vibe for me. But if I watch even more, like one more zombie movie in a week, I'll get over it. I've watched enough zombie movies in my life for 2 lifetimes. So yeah, I kind of I'm kind of tired of it, but this video is here for you. So, and thanks for recommending this to me to, I think his name is featuring sign 57, I think. I don't remember. I remember seeing in the comments or something. He he recommended it to me somewhere. I don't remember, but yeah. Um, and if any of these movies are actually good, let me know. But they don't. The cover art does not look that great, especially on these two. But yeah, that's enough for today. This video is even longer than the previous one. But goodbye. I hope you have a very great, well, day or evening. Bye.